Habaragani, what is the word? Tonight's word is Kuumba. My name is Sage Chioma, and I have the honor and privilege of not only being a docent here at the International Civil Rights Center and Museum, but being tonight's speaker.
Sage Chioma is a motivational speaker, a lecturer, community health educator who specializes in behavioral health, diversity, equity, and inclusion. She offers leadership development and community health educational workshops, as well as business and spiritual retreats. Her restorative workshops are both powerful and transformative. And whether she is delivering a motivational keynote address or a cultural empowerment workshop, or whether she's facilitating a retreat, Sage infuses storytelling, poetry, and expressive arts into each presentation. Now, as a writer and a published poet, she masterfully weaves difficult subjects such as race, mental health, cultural identity, and health equity into beautiful messages of hope, healing, and resilience.
I'd like to say that I am proud to speak on a principle that is near and dear to my heart. And also during this presentation, you will see a performance by the Point Dance Company right here at the lunch counter. The creativity is something that just oozes from the souls of Black folk. Creativity is the superpower of Blacks across the globe and throughout the African diaspora. The International Civil Rights Center and Museum is proud to present Kuumba Creativity. Habaragani, what's the word? Kuumba. The International Civil Rights Center and Museum welcomes you to the 6th night of Kwanzaa. The principle Kuumba in Swahili means creativity. Kuumba, to do as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than when we inherited it. The word principle is defined as a fundamental truth or proposition that serves as the foundation for a system or belief or behavior, or for a chain of reasoning. In other words, a principle is a simple truth that helps to positively guide you in your life. When speaking of principles, one thing I know for sure is that principles are deeply rooted in values, which is perfectly demonstrated within the 7 spiritual principles of Kwanzaa. Spiritual principles are never in conflict with one another. They are interlocked, woven tightly together, each principle building one upon the other. The 6th principle of Kwanzaa, Kuumba, creativity, is perfectly anchored between Nia and Imani, purpose and faith. Purpose and faith, 2 highly charged spiritual principles. Just the word creativity reminds me of what we all have been told, that we are created in the image and likeness of the Creator. Yes, that spark of divinity, inherent in each one of us, is made manifest through our creativity, both individually and collectively. The creativity that emerged from the collective soul of Black folks, whether from their sorrow and sadness or their resilience and brilliance, continues to influence modern culture across the globe. Daniel Black, the author of The Coming, a book written about the Maafa, which is a Swahili term that means the great disaster, great tragedy, the unspeakable horror of the Middle Passage. The word Maafa acknowledges those who died during the Middle Passage. There are as many as 2 million lives lost. The Maafa acknowledges those whose bones still lie on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean. I've written a poem inspired by the doorway of no return in the Cape Coast Castle on Gorée Island in Senegal. The poem is titled Doorway. The shrieks of ghosts echo from the Cape Coast Castle. Spices, ivory, and gold melt into Atlantic horizons. A doorway leads to stolen tomorrows. A perilous journey begins, never to return again. The sale of spices, ivory, and gold choke the memories loved ones hold. Beautiful African bodies, twisted like brown twigs, wall to wall, shame-shackled souls suffocating in the dismal, dank dungeons of misery and despair. Each one's thirst insatiable, thirsty for water to drink, to cleanse, to wash dung-caked bottoms, crammed into close quarters, tight corners, thirsting for a quarter of an inch to stretch limbs and lungs. Only naked terror could pierce this darkness as coffins with white sails set off into bloody sunsets, scorching humanity's collective soul. Going once, going twice, black flesh sold. Going once, going twice, black flesh sold. Daniel Black states that continuously shifting the African did not destroy the gifts. He speaks of the magnificence of the creativity and gifts that were spread across the globe in what we lovingly refer to as the African diaspora. Daniel Black also declares that not only were the gifts transferred with us, but it was those very same gifts that saved us. Creativity, defined as the ability to transcend traditional ideas, patterns, relationships, and to create meaningful new ideas, forms, methods, and interpretations. Kuumba requires communication, ingenuity, inspiration, collaboration, originality, and above all else, imagination. The key words I choose to highlight are transcend and imagination. Both words reveal the inherent power in the principle of Kuumba. These are aspects of creativity that allow the heart of Africa to pulsate and like an electric current surge throughout the African diaspora. Traditional rhythms held in their hearts and minds made the journey with them. In 1817, in New Orleans, the enslaved were permitted to sing and dance every Sunday afternoon in a place called Congo Square in the center of New Orleans. The curious whites who turned out to see them did not know what they were witnessing. The complex percussive rhythms and syncopated beats also made the journey, and once unleashed, activated opportunities for collaboration, communication, ingenuity, and inspiration. A burst of creative energy released moans, shouts, utterances, and soulful tones, creating musical notes filled with such sorrow, never heard by human ears nor felt by human heart. Music that is timeless and continues to soothe the collective soul of humanity. Yes, work songs emerged, call and response emerged, Negro spirituals emerged, ragtime, jazz, blues, bebop, and the boombox beats bouncing off the concrete with the modern day griot of hip hop emerging within the inner city. The African declaring their own freedom through the powerful art of creative self-expression. The principle of Kuumba, doing as much as we can, the way we can, to leave not only our community more beautiful than we inherited it, but the entire world gained from our presence and collective power, reminding us once again that our inherent divinity is manifest in our creativity, both individually and collectively. Kuumba gave the African the ability to transcend traditional ideas, patterns, rules, and relationships deeply embedded in a fabricated social construct designed to make them complicit in their own demise. It is the power of Kuumba, perfectly anchored and wedged between Nia and Imani, purpose and faith, that enabled them to create meaningful new ideas, forms, methods, interpretations of originality and progressiveness. Kuumba required us to use our imagination. One of my favorite definitions for the word imagination is the power to recombine the material furnished by experience or memory for the accomplishment of an elevated purpose. Remember, spiritual principles are never in conflict. They interlock and they're tightly woven together, each building off of the other. Isabel Wilkerson writes about how the newly freed found themselves in a climate of violence, hostility, and cruelty. They fled the southern states to escape lynching and Jim Crow, a system of discrimination. It is with great faith, Imani, that 6 million migrated, mainly to the northern states, bringing all of their talent, craftsmanship, and creative genius with them. As the presence and power of Kuumba continued to build with Nia and Imani in full stride for a purpose greater than merely surviving, but for the elevated purpose of striving, thriving, and moving beyond the boundaries of their known reality. Kuumba contains within it the use of the imagination to ask new questions like, what is a dream deferred? This is the question Langston Hughes asked in his poem Harlem. What happens to a dream deferred? The final lines of the poem ask the question, maybe it sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? I say yes. A dream deferred exploded into the Harlem Renaissance, producing great poets, writers, and playwrights, Zora Neale Hurston, James Weldon Johnson, Countee Cullen, and Langston Hughes, just to name a few. It produced musicians, composers, and band leaders, Count Basie, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington. And in the 1960s, it exploded once again into the Black arts movement, artistry rooted in resistance. Art requires improvisation and imagination. Recently, Iyanla Vanzant, the inspirational speaker, author, New Thought leader, shared a very powerful teaching on the word imagination. She shared that imagination contains 176 words. Yes, you heard me right. 176 words can be made from the one word imagination. A few choice words like animate, animation, giant, ignition, atoning, maintain, nation, magi, anoint, gain, and my personal favorite, 2 words combined, I am. What I know about spiritual principles, especially in the case of Kuumba, it is only through application that they work. And imagination is what activates the application of Kuumba and gave us the determination as a people to transcend and rise above all obstacles and adversity. Can you fathom the amount of improvisation and imagination it required for a people to envision a world where they could and would define themselves, shape, mend, and mold their own destiny? The contributions of Black people throughout the African diaspora are endless. Although creativity is understood as the use of imagination or original ideas, especially in the production of artistic work, I would be remiss if I stopped there, because the gifts that were transferred from Africa throughout the diaspora didn't stop at the artistry of Black folks. I chose 2 African American scientists to highlight because they both mastered the art of transcendence. And their lives fully demonstrate the commitment to always do as much as we can in the way that we can in order to make our community more beautiful and beneficial than when we inherited it. The first, George Washington Carver, had to transcend the traditional ideas, patterns, and rules of his time, being born enslaved and orphaned as an infant. The first relationship that contributed to his transcendence was his relationship with nature as a boy. It was the one thing that made sense and mirrored his connection to both the creation and the creator. In his own words, he described being overwhelmed by a great presence and stated, "I knew even then it was the great spirit of the universe, and never since have I been without this consciousness of God speaking to me through plants, rocks, and every other aspect of the Creator." His love for plants and nature progressed, and he first pursued an education in the fine arts, painting beautiful floral arrangements and landscapes. He later became an agricultural scientist and dedicated his life to serving Black farmers and providing resources to help them gain more independence economically. While a professor at Tuskegee Institute, George Washington Carver developed techniques to improve soils depleted by the repeated planting of cotton. Apart from his work to improve the life of farmers, Carver was also a leader in promoting environmentalism. George Washington Carver created over 300 products made from peanuts, sweet potatoes, and soybeans. All the while, he demonstrated the principles of Ujima, collective work and responsibility, and Ujama, cooperative economics. This was his vision. His tombstone reads, "He could have added fortune to fame, but caring for neither, he found happiness and honor in being helpful to the world." Although many of his African American contemporaries did not agree with Carver or Booker T. Washington, it was Dr. Luther Williams who says George Washington Carver's revolutionary disposition was creativity and discovery, not activism in the social political context. The second scientist, Dr. Hadiya Nicole Green, is a STEM pioneer, leader, humanitarian, and entrepreneur who is introducing the world to the next generation of cancer treatments, cancer charities, and affordable health care. She is one of the nation's leading medical physicists and one of the first African American women to earn a PhD in physics. Dr. Green developed a revolutionary cancer treatment that uses lasers and nanotechnology to eliminate cancer in mice after only one 10-minute treatment in just 15 days, with no observable side effects. To assure the affordability of this treatment, she founded a nonprofit organization, the Orally Smith Cancer Research Foundation. The example of these two scientists demonstrates that the gifts that were transferred from Africa throughout the diaspora are not limited to artistic works. Both Carver and Green recombined the materials furnished by experience or memory for the accomplishment of an elevated purpose. However, there is something to be said about artistry, and what I've heard is that there is a strange paradox when creating art in an oppressive system. The art becomes the perfect container in which the truth can be held, hidden, or cleverly disguised. In many instances, the artist could speak truth to power, like when Maya Angelou took control of the narrative and penned these words of defiance: "And still I rise." You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may tread me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I got oil wells pumping in my living room, just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tide, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bow head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness upset you? Don't you take it awful hard that I laugh like I got gold mines digging in my own backyard? You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I am a black ocean, leaping and wide. Welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I'll rise into a daybreak that is wondrously clear. I'll rise, bringing the gifts that the ancestors gave. I am the dream and hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. The point dancers are demonstration of how far the dances, the rhythms have traveled from Africa to the diaspora. They are a perfect demonstration of the gifts that are held within that continue to explode. It is Patrice Malidoma Somé who says that true power is when a culture is reborn within the very culture that killed it. So as the holiday season comes to a close, remember the power of Kuumba, that spark of divinity inherent in each one of us, made manifest through our creativity, both individually and collectively. Remember that we are created in the image and likeness of the Creator. So you are always creating. You could never not create. So we have a choice to create deliberately and purposefully and intentionally, or by default. I ask you to join us and create purposefully, deliberately, and intentionally in the spirit of Kuumba. We thank you for joining us this evening. We hope that you're enjoying all the festivities that are going on throughout the city for this special day, Karamu celebrations and Kuumba activities. For tomorrow, we'd like to invite you for our final day, which is a principle that is one of the most powerful because it is what is required for us to make it as far as we have and to continue the journey. Tomorrow night, our speaker, Jewel Diamond Taylor, will speak about Imani, the principle of faith.